Entertainment. It is something that has been sought out by man since the very dawn of its existence. First mercilessly bludgeoning each other with rocks, then to storytelling and pornography, and eventually leading to the multitude of mediums we know today. Entertainment now spans the entire spectrum of our perception, bleeding into every facet of our lives. Film, television, music, all of these things are forms of entertainment that we indulge in every day. Even while working, the common individual will preoccupy their subconscious mind with the chatter of a Taylor Swift or a Joe Rogan. But very few understand the value and satisfaction that can be derived from a classic novel like Les Miserables. The youth, and even some of those advanced in age, can't seem to find the time, or more likely can't be bothered, to put in the slightest bit of effort in...
Novel? What's that, like a funny keychain or something? Les Miserables, more like let's fucking go. I'm a gamer, bro. I don't read, alright? Give me an overpriced keyboard and mouse and let me kill shit. The new Battleman game came out like 2 hours ago and I've been waiting for it for ages. The last one released like a whole 2 weeks ago and this one is totally different. They made the F451 Tac Hawk custom deal 2.3% more damage. And they have an entirely new empty building to shoot each other in. So yeah, fuck books. I'm too epic for that. Or I wish I was. Unfortunately, I don't have the financial freedom to afford a $150 quintuple A game, nor the storage required to install the 500 gigabytes of the game's files. I'm just a lowly poser talking big. The games I play are just a really good value and hardly make a dent in storage. Oh. So if you're like me, and the in-your-face marketing of these overpriced, overblown shit shows isn't doing anything for you, here's some affordable and smaller games that deserve more love from us. The common gamers. Cyberhook is a grappling hook-centric 3D platformer that looks like how Zoomers think the 80s looked. It was developed by Blazing Stick, known for making Cyberhook, and published by Graffiti Games, who also published The Adventures of Chris. Cyberhook has a very, very strong emphasis on momentum, and by golly, that shit rips. This is one of the best momentum platformers I've ever played. Have you ever played a platformer where you can build up a shitload of speed, only to tap your big toe on the ground and have it come to a screeching halt? Sucks, doesn't it? Most platformers with momentum mechanics I've played have some kind of speed cap for ground movement, so if you build up a big old bunch of speed in the air, touching the ground can completely break all the inertia you've built up, and it feels so yucky it makes your bones itch. But Cyberhook is the only platformer I've played where there isn't a speed cap, at least not a noticeable one. In fact, a lot of the time just running on the ground is the best way to build speed. Instead of limiting speed and momentum to make the levels work, the levels are designed around the ridiculous velocity potential. It's possible, and maybe even encouraged, to skip half of the obstacles on a map by just fucking with the momentum enough. It is exactly what I want from a 3D platformer. There are other mechanics alongside the hook, like a finger gun that breaks the green, and a slow-mo that seconds as a zoom. But that's pretty much it. It's a very simple game, and that's a big reason why it's fun. It doesn't get lost in the sauce of adding extraneous features. It looks good, and it's got great sound design. The music fits the aesthetic, but can get repetitive when you keep smashing your skull against the wall over and fucking over again trying to beat some of their later levels. Oh my god, they are evil. These levels really test your precision. Frankly, I think these levels are torture, because they tend to limit the freedom in how you can approach the stage, and the excessive precision makes me want to swallow my own hands. I'm into the big open levels that allow you to approach the stage however you want. The challenge I like is getting a higher spot on the leaderboard, because the dopamine hit when you see how many spots you've moved up on the world rankings is so good. Cyberhook isn't really new either. It came out in 2020, but I hadn't heard of it until someone recommended it to me earlier this year. 2024. It goes on sale so much that I wouldn't be surprised if 1 million people already own it and don't realize it, including you. The reason why I think this game needs more love, mainly is because of the community potential. Similar to what I said about the Pedestrian, if you watched that video, the potential for community-made maps is huge. The game has Steam Workshop integration, so we could get a ton of people to keep making fresh content for the game. Cyberhook is exactly what I want from a 3D platformer. It's fast, simple, has a great aesthetic, it's challenging, and rewards me for fucking around. Check it out next time it's on sale, which is like all the time. The second game on the docket is Haiku the Robot. Haiku the Robot is a game I'm very surprised isn't more popular. It is a small Metroid-like game created and published by Mr. Morris Games, the maker of that farming idle game that you may or may not have ever heard of. It has a very simple, stripped-down, and focused design, which is very much needed in this subgenre. The game takes place in a destroyed land of machines that are just trying to get by. You play as this little, somewhat homicidal robot trying to get to the end of the game, I guess. Honestly, I didn't pay much attention to the story because I didn't need to. And in a game like this, that's a good thing. The way the areas connect and the individual rooms are structured allows you to figure out where you need to go without wasting a shitload of your time walking around doing nothing. The rooms and zones are distinctly colored and shaped, making it easy to remember rooms that you may need to backtrack to. You don't need to talk to people to know where to go. The game has good enough conveyance so that you can just figure it out on your own naturally. The combat is very simple. It's basically just a side, up, and down attack. You can also pogo on enemies, which is always fun. One of my favorite parts of the game is the fact that it doesn't have a particular order that you have to do things in. It's possible to fight bosses and get upgrades in a different order on varying playthroughs. I played through it at the same time as one of my friends, and we found that we had started the game going down 2 different paths, and ended up acquiring major abilities in a different order. I'm not sure how open the game is, but the fact that something like that can happen shows how well the game is structured. The game's progression feels more natural than many other games of this kind. Oh yeah, I almost forgot to mention, there's lore! Oh my god, I love lore! Every game needs it! Now from my description and the footage, you may notice some glaring similarities between Haiku the Robot and a very popular indie title, Palworld. I'm kidding, Hollow Knight. Yes, it is clearly taking a lot of inspiration from Hollow Knight. In the way you can pogo on enemies to the overall end of the world kind of vibe, there is a lot of Hollow Knight in there. And I believe this is a big reason why this game hasn't gotten the praise it deserves. Many people will see this or play it and think of how it is similar to Hollow Knight, then think it's inferior. I even compared it to Hollow Knight when I first played it because the similarities are very clear. But there are some things that I believe Haiku actually does better than Hollow Knight, especially in the level design. And the game was made by a solo dev. One guy. So complaining that it doesn't stand up to Hollow Knight is the most brain-dead pedantic argument you can make. I feel like after Hollow Knight, developers started trying to make Metroid-inspired games bigger and longer with more shit, without giving any thought to the basics. However, Mr. Morris demonstrates his understanding of Hollow Knight's weaknesses because Haiku the Robot delivers a concise and fun experience that I believe overall is more enjoyable than Hollow Knight. Please direct all hate that you may feel right now towards me and not Haiku the Robot or Mr. Morris Games, thank you. The next game I'd like to recommend is Dread Delusion. Developed by lovely Hellplace, makers of some horror games you've never heard of, and published by Dread XP, producers of Sucker for Love, Date to Die For. Dread Delusion is a classic RPG that Todd Howard would make if he dropped acid and still had any creativity. The game is set in a bizarre world of sky islands, decades after a war between humans and gods has ravaged the land. It's fucking rad. The game starts by giving you a basic rundown of what's generally going on, then kicks you out into the world, making you discover and figure out everything yourself. There are many factions to side with or oppose, and there is no right answer to anything. This game gives you so many big ethical decisions to make that actually affect the environment. And whether your choice is right or wrong is completely dependent on your disposition. The game actually encourages you to roleplay. There is no best possible outcome, because the result of every decision is subjective. It depends on how you see this unique world, which means that lore is actually important to your experience. Reading tomes and history books can affect the choices you make and whether you see an outcome as a positive or a negative. But how you interpret these books or information depends on what you already know about the world and who wrote the book. The author's disposition actually affects how the information is presented. It's like real life. It's so cool. The reason why I believe this works so well is that this world is so fucking strange and unique that you, the player, are thrust into it with minimal bias. So you have to learn everything yourself, With how you interpret the information, you will then naturally fall into role-playing a character with your own thoughts and beliefs on what the world needs. I've never played a game that had me doing that, not even Baldur's Gate 3. The combat in the game isn't terribly interesting, it's your standard first-person hack and slash plus magic blobs. But there's a dope-ass spell that lets you run super fast, which we should standardize in every adventure game like this. It also has those weird wibbly-wobbly PSX-style graphics, which really elevate the bizarre nature of the world. I hope I didn't sing its praises too much. It's an incredibly interesting game that I had a very fun time exploring and learning about. It's definitely not for everyone. I'm sure plenty of people would find it boring, but if you like the Elder Scrolls games like Daggerfall, you should check it out. It's the best Elder Scrolls game since Morrowind. Ooh, plus, if you still haven't played Lunacid, you can get Dread Delusion and Lunacid in the Acid Fantasy bundle on Steam. These next two games are pretty well known, but they're two of my favorite games I've played this year. So I wanted to shout them out because I do believe they deserve more than they got. The first is Dredge. I know this didn't come out this year, but this might be my favorite game I'll play all year. And maybe my favorite horror game I've ever played. I've never been more uncomfortable and paranoid playing a game before. And that's what I want from horror. Holy shit, it's terrifying. I'm sure my thalassophobia helps in making it scarier, but goddamn that shit works. That game keeps throwing stuff at you when you least expect it, and even when you think you've seen it all, something you've never encountered before shows up, always keeping you on your toes and punishing you for getting too comfortable. It seems as though the farther you get into the game, the more fucked up shit happens. It's a slow build up into madness. It's genius. I haven't shown you any crazy stuff in the gameplay footage you're watching, but that's because I don't want to spoil it. All you really need to know is the primary gameplay loop consists of a fishing minigame, inventory management, and progressively upgrading your boat. It's best to just go in knowing the core gameplay loop and that it's a horror game. If you like horror, you gotta play this. Speaking of fishing minigames, the second honorable mention, and last game I'll talk about, has one, and that game is Stellar Blade. This game was pretty popular when it first came out because a bunch of streamers played it and then it just kind of was forgotten. A major reason is probably because it is a PS5 exclusive. That's definitely going to limit sales. It is a single player experience, so many people only played it once, and it was memed on pretty hard because of the detailed jiggle bits.
Damn!
So I feel like many people didn't really take it seriously. I didn't expect much of it either. I figured it was going to be one of those games where all the budget was being put into the visuals without much going into the actual game. But then I played the demo, and it fucking ruled. There are games out there like Neo and Wolong that are really flashy, but don't really have much oomph in the gameplay. Where you press one button, you do a double, triple, half backflip and slash your sword 3,000 times, but it doesn't really feel like you are in full control of each action. This is what I thought Stellar Blade would be like. But I was wrong, and I'm glad I was. Stellar Blade is still really flashy, but when you perform one of these cool feats, it actually feels like you're the one making the call. It feels earned, making it much more satisfying. I've heard many people refer to the game as Sexy Souls or Jiggle Souls or Boob Game. I'm guilty of this as well. But it is terribly reductive to just resign to thinking of it that way because it's so much more than just another Souls clone. Because it's not a Souls clone. But it is pretty similar to Sekiro. However, it is the best Sekiro-like game I've played. And no, I haven't played the monkey game. And after playing through on hard mode, some later encounters are comparable to Sekiro's difficulty. It has so much personality and heart pumped into it. And you can see that in all the fun little... And you can see... Fuck me. Oh god. Jesus. And you can see that in all the fun little things throughout the game, like the can collecting, the fishing minigame, the fun outfits, or the segments that turn the game into a mild horror third-person shooter. The developers were clearly inspired by many games, and they wanted to experiment with all these mechanics. It's a labor of love, with a big budget, and I miss that. It reminds me of the kinds of games you'd see being made for PS2. I've played through Stellar Blade 3 times. I've completed all the boss rush challenge things, and I like the game more and more every time I play it. The story and dialogue are abysmal.
Whoa! It looks brighter now.
Yes.
And there are some pretty dry exploration areas. But other than that, this game is great. I highly recommend at least trying the demo. It will be coming to PC at some point, so maybe it will get more attention then. Kind of ironic and maybe hypocritical for the last game recommendation to be a bigger budget game where you kill stuff. It's a unique experience at least. There are so many great games out there that I know not enough people know about. If there's anything you think I should check out, please leave a comment below. You can also tell me about how wrong I am, or smash that like button if you liked my rambling. Thanks for watching, and I hope you give some of these a try. They deserve it. Peace.